Morning, everyone. Please rise for the reading of the word. We'll be coming from John 17:22-23. We could wait 7 minutes. And glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, just as we are one. I in them, and you in me, that they be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me, and have loved them as you have loved me. Over here. You may be seated. I heard something a couple of weeks ago, which was about unity and stuff. And what I didn't understand when I heard it is that when you make a commitment to like a marriage or something like that, when I had my first marriage, personally, I shouldn't even have been married. I was doing it all for the wrong reasons, because everybody wanted me to get married.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't, so-called marriage vows, I didn't even get close to this.
So that is part, you did not cheat it out.
That's correct.
Yeah. And you didn't kill each other.
Not yet.
That's
No.
okay.
But
Go ahead.
what I understood was that that's kind of like the same thing, that God created marriage. I didn't do the right thing. Now, with my second marriage, prior to, I understood what a true marriage was. I did not do the same thing that I did in my first marriage. And considering that, I consider the church and marriage to be about the same thing. That when we commit ourselves to a church or to God, now remember, the church is a building. Just like when we were up Kakamega, or not Kakamega, Fred's church, Keith, that when we were putting that cement floor in there, and I don't know who the guy was from Baltimore that came up with us. I forget his name.
Ransom.
Ransom. Okay. And he asked me to say something on the video, and I said that, well, we can build a church. We can put a cement floor in here, but God's going to fill the church up with His Spirit. that's a true church. Now, getting back to the marriage part, I combine both of those together. That with the marriage that I have now and the church, that I understand what a commitment is. Do you think biblically? Fine. And it's all about what I gotta say this morning. You can come up. Bishop Robert Guy can preside.
Randy, do you realize that every word out of your mouth, you are committed to what you are saying
Yes.
every day?
Well, I was told I've been committed. The straight jacket didn't keep me there. Bishop Robert Guy can preside there.
Okay, girls and boys. It's not quite like the Bear Jamboree. How many of you have been to the Bear Jamboree in Disney World? You get to the point before they get started, everybody slide to the right. So if everybody slides to the right, slides to the right this morning, guess what? There'll be enough room for the second crowd coming in. Well, we just count on that. Somewhere here, what did I do with it? Somewhere, I know you gave it to me, Christopher. No, there it is, if there's a Bible with his name. Randy's spot on with unity, about unity. We talked about unity today. We're going to talk briefly about unity, and then Brother Chairman, Denny Light, he don't know it yet, but he's going to call a business meeting to order. First thing we're going to do is talk about unity. Unity is not formed from agreement. It's not formed from agreement. And I thank Randy for on spot doing that. The little bit of talk he gave. Talking about unity. Until death do us part. All too many times people think in their marriage it's until grief do us part. Until, well, that ain't the way my mama always did it, well then, you're not at home anymore. And then it starts. Well, my daddy never did make me do that. He never made me change the oil in my car, and the fight's on. And ironically, the church and marriage are winding together. For instance, we are the bride of Christ. That's right. You ever been to a wedding and they've got the? Well, I was watching something the other night on Princess Meghan now. That train that she had, they had to have two people holding it as she went up the steps. And she was a beautiful bride. You know, I've been to some weddings, no matter what they put on the woman, she still wasn't beautiful. But then I've seen some beauties that were really horrible. Same way with good-looking men. You'll see some good-looking men say, oh man, look at him. He's got it. And you find out that he's horrible. All too many times I've counseled with people with marital problems, and some of these low-life guys think that they're not much of a husband unless they beat their wives. Well, I think a wife beater should be put in jail and they lose a key. Amen. That's just the way I feel about it. And honey, if you got a boyfriend that's mistreating you now, don't get married because it'll only get worse. Amen. So let's go to the church. So we are the bride of Christ, right? Yes. So unity is not formed from agreements. Well, I'll agree to get married. Here's a ring for your finger. Will you be my loving wife? That was a song, really, honestly. Now, you won't find it in any, not even country or rock and pop today. They say it a little bit different, but it all means the same. Here's a ring for your finger. Will you be my loving wife? Yes, on the conditions. Then we go to the church. Jesus called us. And we are supposed to be his bride. We are the bride of Christ. And as I said, now look at Timmy, he's a bride. Now just think about that. Can you imagine him walking down the aisle with a long train behind him? No. Says the one back there with the white whiskers. No. So, the reason for the train, the reason for that was in arranged marriages, that if a wife would chicken out, if a woman would chicken out on the way to the altar and want to run away, people would grab the train. That's what's all. You can research it. You can Google it. That's what it is. And then we go to the bridesmaids and the best men. Their job was, and this all comes back from medieval times, in arranged marriages. And so the best man's supposed to get the groom, I almost said the groom to church on time.
Yeah.
The matron of honor is supposed to make sure that she don't run away, because all too often, even right now, in Saudi Arabia and those Arabic countries, a girl reaches about Maddie's age, 12, 14 years old, and they might have her fixed up with a 70-year-old man, just about as old as the two Denny's we have here. Well, a 14-year-old, what she want old men like us? So if she goes to run away, the bridesmaid's supposed to stop her. Now let's move on to the church. But unity is formed from love and forgiveness.
Amen.
Love and forgiveness.
Amen.
I'm telling you that in my short life on this earth, 76 years and some odd months, there are some people I just seem to slap than listen to them talk. Some believers.
Yeah.
Well, that's no way for a preacher to act. Well, guess what, guys? And I'll take this fancy suit off. You'll find, I don't have, you know how the young guys lift weights and they build up what they call a six-pack. I have a six-sack. Went into a sack. And so you'll find a six-sack underneath all this beautiful suit. But we're looking at the marriage of the church. We are the bride of Christ. Okay? And if you don't believe me, look it up. We're not going to go to all the scriptures because we have some business we're going to take care of this morning in a little bit. But before we get there, unity is formed from love and forgiveness.
Amen.
And the latter part of John 17:23, may that be brought to complete unity. To do what? It's right there in front of us.
To let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me.
We've got to have unity. You ever been around another couple, you and another couple go out for lunch or dinner, or you spend a weekend at the beach, or in the mountains, or somewhere, and once you spend the weekend with that couple, you find out they're not so loving. And you can't wait for the weekend to be over because they're so miserable and hateful for one another. I hear some people, some guys, the way they talk to their wives, is terrible.
Amen.
It is terrible. And just the way we, the church, the bride of Christ, talk to Christ, is terrible. Now, we get back to the best men and the matrons of honor. We've got to have mature Christians in the church to help those who are new Christians, new believers.
Amen.
Amen.
Brian's kind of a new believer. He said to me a couple of weeks ago, he don't quite understand the politics of church. I said, it's not politics. Not politics. But a new believer, we got two young ones here. Elizabeth, of course, she's a woman now. 18 to become a woman, I think. And Hunter, boy, is he in for a trip. He is in for a trip.
Amen.
I'll never forget Timothy Lentz and Adam Liston Larkin when they were there together with us. We were having a crusade. John Keener was there with us on that one, and Rick Keener. And it was at the Keedy Hall. And they came to me. We were there a day or two or three. I don't know how long the crusade was. Or evangelism. It depends on how you want to call it. They mean the same. Well, Adam and Tim come to me and said, he says, Pat, can we allow Michael to Tom as our driver? Can you allow Michael to take us to town? And I said, for what? He said, because you see those two boys over there? Now, I think Adam was 12 or 13. And Tim's about 2 years older than Adam, 3 years. Those two boys, they have one pair of shoes. And the one will wear in the morning till lunch, if they have lunch, about midday. And then he takes them off and gives them to the other one to wear the rest of the day. And that's every day. And they're boys. And they were Barbie sneakers with no strings. So we want to go to town and give them both a pair of shoes. I said, you go ahead and do it.
Praise the Lord.
Because those boys, they did things to raise money so that they were able to make the trip. And so, were you along on that trip? I don't remember. No, I don't think you were there.
No, Danny and I went at the same time, 2000.
Yeah, okay. Well, you talk about two of the happiest boys around, and that was a life-changing thing. So, Hunter's in for it. He's in for a life-changing thing. Let's get back to the new Christians, or the young Christians. Now, you could say Denny and I are old hats at being Christians. We're old hands. We are old brides. And every day, we welcome another new bride for Christ. Amen?
Amen.
Am I getting to you yet?
Amen.
So it's up to us old hands, to us, we older Christians who've been in church most of our lives, because not all our lives, we're not dead yet, or we wouldn't be sitting here. So we have a chance and an obligation to help mentor the young Christian.
Amen.
And if we act like buttholes, guess what?
Yep.
These young ones are going to say, why would I want to be part of that anyhow? That don't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't understand. The hog take my little brother, and now I'm not going to eat pork. Bet me, if the hog take my little brother, I'd still eat pork. Well, I'm not a big, pardon?
Twice as much.
I eat twice as much because I love my brother. Unity is a sea of love. Unity is life without dissension. Well, you go on to the right part of your bulletin. You might discover we don't necessarily like one another. Agreed?
Amen.
I heard one pitiful amen.
Amen.
That's another, a little stronger amen.
Amen.
That's a better amen. We find out that we really, there's something about we don't like one another.
You walk through the doors, we're not multiple people, but one person.
We're the
Amen.
church. We are the church.
Amen.
How many know Franklin Graham Ministries?
Yeah.
Samaritan's Purse?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, guys and gals, you are just as important as Franklin Graham's Samaritan Purse.
Amen.
There are people in Kenya right now, their lives are different because you people, the people who have sat in these benches week after week, month after month, and year after year, saw to it that the support was there.
Amen.
In just a little over 2 weeks, we're going to be landing on the 6th of June in Nairobi.
Amen.
And then it starts. Chug a lug, chug a lug. And that's, I got Hunter and Tanner there to help chug me, chug my lug.
Amen.
Kenyan time.
Kenya time.
Yeah.
And Kenya time is there. 3 hours later, how much more time we have? Just right there. And you might become annoyed a little bit at first of their time, but after a while, it don't hurt for us to relax a little bit. I was told this morning that maybe I should just maybe relax a little bit. That's why I've been awful tired lately. Okay, let's get back. So you necessarily don't like one another and we don't agree with one another.
Amen.
Why is it that church members expect a background check of anybody who comes through the church?
I heard a pastor say they could beat the dog snot out
He was that.
I don't mention that.
All too often, we think we need a background check on a Christian coming in. Or, do you know what Brian did? And he's supposed to be a Christian. He got baptized. He was standing there with the rake. He and Hunter pushing the algae aside so Miss Carol and Connie could be baptized and not come up out of the water, and Elizabeth not come up out of the water with algae in her eyes. So there they were. In Africa, we won't have algae, but we'll be in a pool somewhere. Anyhow, this background check that all too many Christians want with the other Christian, it's a bunch of bunk. It's bunk. I don't agree. I don't agree with everybody. My great aunt, no, my aunt, my daddy's sister, had bright red hair like Deb Keener's. Carrot red. I loved her dearly. And when we go to Tennessee, I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be like her. But I didn't want red hair. Because I didn't care for that. But did that cancel her out as being my aunt? My daddy's sister?
Yeah.
No. She just liked something different. That's all. So here we are today. I'm asking you to please, if I drop dead today, and you continue on in church, and it's my desire, and I hope and I pray that you continue on.
Amen.
A couple weeks ago, I had a message that I brought. Beware of the enemy within.
Amen.
As I told you before, and I'm repeating it, the Hall of Presidents at the Disney World, and they got this figure of Abraham Lincoln standing up. And he starts 4 and he goes on and on. And he said that tyrants of foreign nations and different ones, I don't know how many that they repeat, said they can't stand against the United States. So if the United States is going to fall, it has to come from within.
Amen.
The same way with the church.
Yeah.
If this church is going to fall, it's going to be from within.
Amen.
Mr. Mundus across the street not going to cause this church to fall.
Yeah.
The state policeman that lives there sometimes, and the other time he lives in California, he's back and forth. He wouldn't cause this church to fall.
Yeah.
The enemy around us can't cause this church to fall.
That's right.
The only way it'll fall is from within.
Amen.
Ross Perot, many years ago, he ran for president. He was a chicken man. And he said, you're going to listen to the great sucking sound. Bang! Well, the biggest problem with having a background check of other people who want to come into the church is that we want them to be just like me. If they're just like me, then this church will be perfect.
Yeah.
So we're all dead.
Sorry?
We were all died.
Yeah, but we'd all be perfect if we're just like me.
We're all dead. But that's all we say, you're almost perfect.
I'm almost perfect. I'm near perfect. I am so close to being perfect. I was at a birthday party yesterday for one of my mom's cousins who turned 90. He's at the point now he must use a walker to get around. He gave up his driver's license a couple of 6 months ago, he said, because he nearly crashed into somebody, nearly T-boned somebody. And so he gave up the driving. And I said to him, David, I know exactly where you were. February the 5th, 1978. Boy, he said, I'm glad somebody can. Sometimes I have trouble being remember where I was last week. I said, you were in Palmetto, Florida, at Christ Chapel. You and your wife, Ruth Godfrey, who was a miller of Miller Plant Farms and Thieves, and Raj Miller, who's a brother to his wife, and his wife Doris. February the 5th, 1978, we're in Palmetto, Florida, at Christ Chapel, Palmetto, Florida, for my ordination service. Oh, he said, I remember that we were there, but I didn't remember when it was. I said, yes, and I remember we had communion. I remember you told me that when you take a piece of the unleavened bread, you either break it in 5 pieces or you bite off a piece at a time till you bite off 5 pieces of your unleavened bread because of the 5 wounds of Jesus' body. Oh, that's right. I remember telling you. You did communion a little different than we do. So I was gathered around by many 90-year-olds yesterday. That's kind of one of the kids. At 76, I had, man. So anyhow, let's get right down to the very bottom, and here we're gonna get into business here in a little bit. Unity is working together.
Amen.
I don't know if we're gonna have another chicken barbecue before we go to Kenya or not. The possibility we could do one on, the only possibility would be the 2nd of June.
Yeah.
We'll think about that, we'll discuss that later. So, take this home, and that magnetic thing you have, put that up on your fridge. Or put that somewhere in your house where you look at it any day. And then you ask yourself the correct question. Am I with it? Or am I against it? Heaven and earth. How's the Lord's Prayer go? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Stop right there. How many times have you said the Lord's Prayer or recited? And how many times have you said, or Danny said a little bit, what comes out of your mouth? How many times have you said on earth as it is in heaven? Well, this bride of Christ can't be a miserable bitch. I think that's the way to spell it.
Mhm.
Let me check my spell, word check.
You're good, Bob.
I told Sandy this morning, you gotta remember, you gotta remind me of things because my memory passed away 3 years ago. My memory bank. And I don't mind when any one of you remind me of something that I've forgotten. Because I'm reaching that point. I'm so glad to have Elizabeth with us and in my house. What a help she is. What a gal.
Amen.
And I am happy. With that in mind,
I think she was a woman long before she was 18. For what she does at your house.
amen. I just love it in the morning, Sunday morning especially. And Quinn is getting dressed himself. And she'll say, that don't match. You're not going to church looking like an orphan. And he said, well, I don't look like an orphan. Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
And she said that long before she was 18. Okay,